Chosen one, listen closely. You were never waiting for a sign. You were waiting to trust the one already speaking. You have been taught to expect destiny to arrive loudly with spectacle, with certainty that removes risk, but heaven does not guide that way, not with those entrusted to walk first. What you call confusion was never absence. It was excess noise layered over a signal that never stopped transmitting. That quiet knowing you've tried to rationalize away. That inner resistance when a path looks perfect on paper but feels wrong in your chest. That pull toward directions you couldn't logically defend, yet couldn't silence either. That is not imagination. That is not emotion running loose. That is not weakness. That is your compass activating. You keep asking for clarity, yet clarity has been asking for you. Not to analyze it, not to test it endlessly, but to stand still long enough to feel where it's already pointing. Heaven did not design you to be dragged by external markers, applause, or permission. You were built to navigate terrain maps cannot chart. And yes, it feels disorienting at first. Every uncharted territory does, especially when you were conditioned to doubt your own perception, to outsource discernment, to mistrust the very sensitivity that was meant to keep you aligned. But hear this now. If you feel lost, it is not because the path disappeared. It is because you were taught to ignore the compass in your hands. Your intuition is not a suggestion. It is not a preference. It is not a mood. It is a divine orientation system calibrated specifically to your assignment. It sharpens when danger is near. It grows quiet when alignment is secure. It tightens when compromise threatens your trajectory. You were never meant to wait for the world to tell you who you are. You were meant to remember. You were just reminded that the compass never left your hands. Now you must understand what it actually is, because the world taught you to call it a feeling. And that misnaming did more damage than silence ever could. A feeling rises and falls. A feeling reacts. A feeling begs for validation. But what lives inside you does none of that. Your intuition does not shout to be believed. It waits to be recognized. It is a frequency, a steady internal tone that predates your thoughts, your language, even your fear. It does not arrive suddenly. It has always been present, humming beneath your decisions, tugging gently when you drift, tightening when a choice fractures alignment. That's why it doesn't behave like emotion. Emotion flares. Intuition settles. Emotion explains itself. Intuition does not ask permission. You sense this long before you had words for it. As a child, before survival taught you to override perception, you knew when a room was unsafe without evidence. You knew when a promise was hollow before it broke. You knew when a path was wrong, even while everyone applauded it. That wasn't maturity missing. That was calibration intact. But calibration threatens systems that rely on predictability. So you were trained to doubt resonance and trust consensus, to override inner knowing with logic stripped of wisdom, to mistake intuition for anxiety and obedience for intelligence. Yet notice this, your intuition never argued with you. It simply withdrew when ignored. It became quieter, not weaker, like a compass buried under metal, distorted, but still pointing true. And the more you relied on external validation, the harder it became to feel that internal north. Not because it vanished, but because interference increased. Chosen one intuition is not a thought process. It is alignment registering itself. When you stand at a crossroads and your chest tightens without explanation, that is not fear by default. Fear scatters. Intuition concentrates. It pulls inward. It narrows options rather than multiplying them. When a decision feels calm, but heavy, peaceful, yet demanding, that is not comfort. That is resonance asking for courage. And when something excites you wildly, but leaves a hollow echo afterward, that is not intuition celebrating. That is desire borrowing energy without offering direction. This is why intuition cannot be rushed. You cannot interrogate a frequency. You can only tune yourself to it. Silence strengthens it. Integrity sharpens it. Consistency restores its volume. Every time you act in alignment, even in small, unseen ways, the signal grows clearer. Every time you betray it for convenience, the signal remains, but the static multiplies. You were never meant to chase intuition. You were meant to become quiet enough to hear it again. This is also why your intuition often contradicts urgency. Systems demand speed. Heaven prioritizes accuracy. What feels like delay is often recalibration, a pause long enough for the needle to settle so you don't mistake momentum for direction. And let this land fully. Your intuition does not serve your comfort, it serves your assignment. It will guide you away from applause. It will disrupt your plans. It will isolate you before it positions you. Not because you are being punished, but because uncharted paths require internal navigation. The compass does not explain the terrain ahead. It only tells you where true north is. And that is enough. The compass you are relearning to trust has never belonged to you alone. It has always marked a lineage. In the last section, you felt the difference between emotion and resonance, between reaction and alignment. Now understand this, that frequency you carry did not originate in isolation. It has appeared wherever transformation was required before permission existed. History remembers outcomes. It rarely records how direction was chosen. Those who altered the course of nations, movements, and inner worlds were not led first by strategy. They were led by an inner registration that defied the logic of their time. Before words, before followers, before validation, there was a knowing they could not shake. They were not the loudest. They were not the safest. They were the most attuned. Every era has tried to rename this attunement to make it manageable. Instinct, genius, vision, madness. But the pattern remains the same. A person becomes aware of an internal pull that contradicts prevailing structures. They resist it. They rationalize it. They attempt to dilute it into something acceptable. And when that fails, they follow it. Not because they are fearless, but because ignoring it becomes unbearable. Chosen one, this is the part of the story they never glamorize. Intuitive figures were rarely celebrated while listening. They were questioned, isolated, doubted. Not because they lacked clarity, but because their clarity disrupted existing maps. Systems prefer predictability. Intuition introduces divergence. That is why those guided internally often appear out of step with their time. Their decisions don't optimize comfort. They optimize alignment. And alignment, when it appears ahead of schedule, looks like rebellion to those still navigating by consensus. You felt this tension yourself. Moments when you couldn't explain why a direction felt wrong, yet everything around you insisted it was right. Moments when walking away cost you status, security, or belonging, yet staying would have fractured something deeper. Moments when the voice inside you asked for obedience before explanation. This is not a personal flaw, it is a historical signature. Those who carried intuitive authority often paid for it early. They were misunderstood before they were understood, resisted before they were revered, and many never lived to see external confirmation of what they already knew internally. But notice the common thread. Their intuition did not make them reckless. It made them precise. They didn't move impulsively. They waited until the internal signal outweighed the external risk. And when they moved, it looked sudden only to observers who had not heard the months, sometimes years of internal dialogue that preceded the action. This is why your hesitation is not evidence of doubt. It is evidence of discernment. You have been listening longer than anyone realizes. And because you live in a time flooded with information, your intuition has had to work harder to stay audible. The noise is louder now, the distortion more refined, but the signal has adapted. It speaks through discomfort, through repeated patterns, through that quiet refusal in you that will not go away no matter how many times you override it. Lineage intuition does not vanish under pressure, it intensifies. When you ignore it, it returns as exhaustion. When you betray it, it returns as restlessness. When you honor it even quietly, it returns as grounded peace. This is the inheritance you carry, not prophecy as spectacle, but perception as responsibility. You were not given intuition to feel special. You were given it because the terrain ahead cannot be navigated by precedent alone. And here is what most never tell you. Those guided by intuition often feel behind in visible progress, while actually being ahead in invisible positioning. The delay you resent is often protection. The isolation you question is often preparation. The confusion you endured was the cost of learning to hear without amplification. You are not late, you are early. And those who are early must learn to trust direction before landmarks appear. What you carry has always existed. You are simply living in the moment where it is required again. You are early. And being early is why the noise feels unbearable. In the last section, you recognized yourself in a lineage that moved before maps were drawn. Now we must name the force that made that inheritance feel unreliable. Because intuition did not fade. It was crowded. You were not born disconnected. You were trained to listen elsewhere. Every voice that told you to be realistic, every metric that replaced meaning, every system that rewarded speed over truth. Each one added a layer of static. The signal never stopped. But it learned to whisper because whispering was the only way to survive in an environment addicted to volume. And over time, you mistook loudness for authority and subtlety for weakness. That was the inversion. Chosen one intuition does not compete. It does not interrupt. It waits. That is why it is easiest to miss when you are overstimulated. When your days are crowded with opinions, expectations, comparisons, and urgency, the signal still speaks, but it speaks beneath all of it. Not fighting for dominance, but holding position. You've noticed this. The clearest moments of knowing didn't arrive mid-scroll or mid-debate. They came in pauses you didn't plan, in exhaustion, in stillness forced by disappointment, in quiet moments after something ended and the noise briefly collapsed. That wasn't coincidence. That was access. External influence always feels busy. It multiplies options. It demands justification. It pressures you to decide quickly so you don't feel left behind. Intuition does the opposite. It narrows, it simplifies, it removes urgency without removing importance. This is how you tell the difference. Noise feels frantic even when it's logical. Intuition feels calm even when it's costly. Noise argues with you. Intuition repeats itself. Noise flatters the ego or threatens survival. Intuition speaks to alignment and nothing else. And here's the part you were never taught. If you grew up in chaos, your nervous system learned to associate intensity with truth. So when intuition arrived quietly, it felt unfamiliar, unsafe even. You learned to distrust peace because peace did not resemble survival. That does not mean your intuition failed. It means your system adapted, which is why discernment now requires unlearning. Not acquiring more information, but removing interference. Creating space where the signal can surface without being drowned out by inherited urgency. You don't need to strain to hear intuition. You need to reduce what competes with it. Notice what happens when you stop explaining yourself internally. When you let a decision sit without defending it. When you resist the impulse to immediately translate knowing into words. The signal strengthens. Because intuition is not verbal by nature, it translates into words later if necessary. Its first language is sensation direction pull. When you force it to speak too early, it fragments into doubt. This is why people who trust intuition often struggle to explain themselves. They are not confused. They are aligned beyond language. And yes, this makes you vulnerable in a world that demands justification. It exposes you to misunderstanding, to being labeled impulsive, mystical, unrealistic. But understand this clearly. The same systems that dismiss intuition rely on it when logic fails. They just prefer it unnamed, controlled, claimed only after outcomes validate it. You are being asked to trust it before outcomes appear, not recklessly, but faithfully. The noise will not disappear, but it no longer has to lead. When you stop chasing clarity and start honoring resonance, the signal begins to rise naturally, not louder but clearer. Like a single tone emerging once the room goes quiet enough to notice it. And once you recognize that tone, again, truly recognize it, you will never confuse it with noise the same way twice. When the noise finally quiets, something else becomes unavoidable. Direction. In the last section, you learned how the signal survives interference. Now you must see how it actually moves you, because intuition is not abstract. It is not poetic symbolism meant to comfort you while life stays the same. It is operational. It shows up when you are standing at decisions that will shape years, not moments. Career shifts that make no sense on paper. Relationships that feel wrong despite perfect optics. Opportunities that look safe but quietly drain your life force. This is where most people betray the compass. They ask intuition to justify itself in advance. But intuition does not offer guarantees. It offers alignment. And alignment often requires you to move before proof exists. That is why following it feels like stepping onto a path that only appears once your foot touches it. You've lived this already. The job you left even though it paid well because something in you tightened every morning. The relationship you couldn't commit to, not because it was abusive, but because it muted you. The decision you delayed for months because explaining it felt impossible. Those weren't failures of courage. They were confirmations of awareness. Intuition does not always guide you toward what looks expansive at first. Sometimes it guides you away from environments that would slowly erode you, away from timelines that were never yours, away from futures that look impressive but feel hollow. And this is why intuition is so often mistaken for self-sabotage. From the outside, it looks irrational. You turn down certainty, you disrupt momentum, you walk away from what others would tolerate. But inside, the signal is precise. It knows where misalignment compounds. It senses decay before symptoms appear. Logic asks, will this work? Intuition asks, will this cost me myself? In relationships, intuition often speaks through discomfort, long before betrayal or breakdown. A subtle sense of shrinking, a repeated need to perform, a quiet grief that appears even on good days. That is not ingratitude. That is the compass warning you of a direction that leads away from your center. In work, intuition often resists paths that promise status but require fragmentation. You can succeed there, yes, but success without alignment extracts a price you feel later as exhaustion, bitterness, or numbness. The compass does not oppose achievement, it opposes disintegration. And here's the truth few admit. Intuition rarely leads you to what you already want. It leads you to what you are meant to steward. Sometimes that means starting over. Sometimes that means staying longer than expected. Sometimes that means choosing a path that looks smaller, but is actually deeper. The compass measures depth, not applause. You notice its guidance most clearly after the fact. The near miss you avoided without knowing why. The conversation you postponed that later revealed hidden danger. The wrong turn that led you to the right encounter. These are not coincidences. They are course corrections executed quietly without drama, because drama is not required for precision. And yet each time you ignore the signal, life grows heavier. Not immediately, gradually, like walking slightly off course for miles before realizing how far you've drifted. Intuition does not punish you. It lets you feel distance. Chosen one, this is where trust becomes embodied. Not in meditation alone, not in reflection after the fact, but in decisions made while uncertainty is still present. You are not asked to abandon reason. You are asked to subordinate it to alignment. Reason is the map. Intuition is north. A map without north is dangerous. North without a map is sufficient. And the more often you let the compass lead in ordinary moments, the more it proves itself in extraordinary ones. Because intuition strengthens through use. It calibrates through obedience. It sharpens when you act before you fully understand why. The Uncharted does not reveal itself all at once. It reveals itself step by step to those willing to move without applause. The compass has been guiding you through real decisions. Now comes the hardest part, discernment. In the last section, you saw how intuition operates in live crossroads. But not every internal voice is sacred. Not every pull is alignment. And this is where many chosen ones stumble, not because they lack intuition, but because they mistake interference for instruction. Fear speaks urgently. Ego speaks seductively. Intuition speaks steadily. Fear demands immediate relief. It asks you to retreat, to hide, to choose what feels safest in the moment. It imagines catastrophe and calls it wisdom. It confuses familiarity with protection and discomfort with danger. Ego, on the other hand, promises elevation without cost. It urges you toward recognition, dominance, exceptionalism. It flatters your wounds and calls them destiny. It wants outcomes more than alignment. Intuition wants neither comfort nor admiration. It wants coherence. This is why the signal can feel inconvenient. It does not rush you, but it does not negotiate either. It will not beg, it will not threaten. It simply remains returning again and again with the same quiet insistence. Notice the difference in your body. Fear scatters your energy. Your thoughts race. Your chest tightens. Your breathing shortens. Everything becomes about avoiding loss. Ego inflates. It feels exciting, intoxicating. But afterward, there is a crash, a hollowness, a need for more validation to sustain the high. Intuition concentrates. It may feel heavy, even sobering, but it brings a strange calm, a sense of rightness that does not depend on outcome. You feel anchored, not elevated, grounded, not urgent. This is the test. Does the voice require an audience? Does it collapse when questioned? Does it disappear when you sit with it in silence? True intuitive guidance survives stillness. In fact, it strengthens there. Fear dissolves when faced calmly. Ego grows restless without applause. Intuition remains unchanged. And here is the confrontation you've been avoiding. Sometimes what you call intuition is actually trauma trying to stay in control. Survival patterns learned long ago repackaged as wisdom. Hypervigilance mistaken for discernment. Withdrawal framed as spiritual restraint. This is not condemnation, it is calibration. Your nervous system learned to protect you before you learned to trust yourself. Of course it speaks loudly. Of course it resists risk. But intuition is not built on fear memory. It is built on alignment memory and internal recognition of what keeps you whole. That is why intuition may ask you to step into uncertainty rather than retreat from it. Why it may lead you toward conversations you'd rather avoid or paths that expose you rather than shield you. Fear says stay safe. Ego says be seen. Intuition says be true. Chosen one, you cannot outsource this discernment. No one can tell you definitively which voice is speaking in every moment, but you can learn the signature, the tone, the aftertaste. Fear leaves residue. Ego leaves hunger. Intuition leaves peace even when the decision is hard. And understand this. The closer you get to irreversible choices, the louder false signals become. Fear panics at thresholds. Ego sees opportunity for elevation. Intuition remains unchanged, steady as north, asking only one thing: alignment before outcome. This is the point where many hesitate. Because once you distinguish the true signal, ignorance is no longer an excuse. You either follow or you knowingly choose divergence. And divergence always costs more than you expect. But so does obedience. And yet only one of those costs leads you home. Once you learn to distinguish the voices, something else becomes undeniable. Your body has always known which one was true. In the last section, you confronted fear and ego masquerading as guidance. Now we go deeper because intuition does not live only in thought. It registers physically long before the mind agrees to cooperate. Your body is not a liability, it is an instrument. And for most of your life, you were taught to override it. You were told tension was normal, that exhaustion meant you were productive, that ignoring discomfort was maturity. So you learned to push past signals instead of reading them. You learned to numb instead of listen. But intuition never abandoned the body. It encoded itself there. That tightening in your chest when you're about to say yes to something misaligned. That heaviness in your gut when a decision fractures your integrity. That sudden clarity in your breath when a path locks into place. These are not random sensations. They are confirmations. Fear agitates the body. It creates shallow breath, clenched muscles, scattered energy. Ego stimulates the body, floods it with adrenaline, urgency, excitement that fades quickly and leaves depletion behind. Intuition stabilizes the body. Even when the decision is difficult, there is coherence. Your breathing deepens. Your posture shifts. Your nervous system settles into a quiet readiness. Not ease, but steadiness. This is why intuitive breakthroughs often feel anticlimactic. No fireworks, no rush. Just a grounded sense of this is it. A knowing that doesn't need to convince you because it already resides beneath the argument. And this is where many chosen ones grow frustrated. They expect intuition to feel dramatic. But drama belongs to distortion. The body speaks in subtleties refined over time. It notices when something drains you slowly, when a person requires you to contract, when an environment forces vigilance instead of presence. You don't always have language for it immediately, but the signal appears nonetheless. If you ignore it long enough, the body escalates. What begins as tension becomes fatigue. What begins as restlessness becomes anxiety. What begins as misalignment becomes illness of spirit, not as punishment, as communication. Your body is loyal to your wholeness. It will always choose truth over convenience, even if your mind argues otherwise. And when intuition is honored, the body responds with resilience. Energy returns. Sleep deepens. Decisions feel cleaner even when outcomes remain uncertain. This is recalibration. You are learning to trust sensation without surrendering to impulse, to read your body without being ruled by it, to recognize that intuition often speaks through what cannot yet be articulated. Stillness is essential here. When you slow down enough to feel your breath, your posture, the way your stomach tightens or releases at a thought, you are not becoming hypersensitive. You are becoming accurate. And accuracy matters now more than ever. Because as you approach the uncharted, the terrain will not provide constant reassurance. There will be moments when logic fails, consensus disappears, and the only confirmation available will be internal coherence. Your body will tell you when you are aligned. Your body will tell you when you are not. The mind may negotiate, the world may disagree, but the body does not lie. It has been keeping record the entire time. Your body has confirmed the signal. Now comes the part few survive unchanged: trust without proof. In the last section, you learn that your body records alignment with brutal honesty. But confirmation is not the same as permission. And this is where the uncharted path reveals its true demand. Society will not validate what it cannot measure. You were trained to justify every decision with credentials, outcomes, statistics, and approval. To explain yourself before you move. To soften certainty so it doesn't threaten others. To wait until consensus forms so responsibility is diluted. But intuition does not wait for consensus, and it does not explain itself in advance. This is why trusting it feels like standing alone at the edge of something unnamed. No applause, no guarantees, no reassurance beyond the internal north you've already felt lock into place. This is not recklessness. This is maturity. Obedience to intuition requires you to move while misunderstood, to choose paths that look premature, impractical, even foolish to those still navigating by visible markers. And yes, this triggers old wounds, the fear of being wrong, abandoned, or exposed. That fear is not a sign to stop. It is a sign you are crossing a threshold. Because every system that benefits from predictability discourages internal authority. If you can be guided from within, you are harder to manage, harder to rush, harder to sell a false future to. So intuition is reframed as naivete, emotionalism, or spiritual fantasy. You have felt this pressure, the subtle shaming when you can't explain why you're leaving, the raised eyebrows when you refuse an opportunity everyone wants, the loneliness of choosing alignment over belonging. Chosen one, this is the cost. Not suffering for its own sake, but separation from borrowed certainty. You are being asked to stand on what you know without external reinforcement, to accept that some confirmations arrive only after commitment, not before. And here is the truth most never say out loud. If you wait to be understood before you move, you will never move. Understanding follows obedience, not the other way around. The uncharted does not reveal itself to observers. It reveals itself to participants. This does not mean you abandon wisdom. It means you abandon permission-seeking. You are allowed to trust what has proven itself internally, repeatedly, quietly over years. You are allowed to choose coherence over explanation. You are allowed to disappoint expectations that were never aligned with your assignment. And yes, this may isolate you for a season, but isolation is not abandonment when it is chosen for integrity. It is space. Space where the signal grows stronger. Space where your nervous system recalibrates to truth rather than approval. Space where you stop negotiating with voices that were never meant to lead you. The uncharted path always narrows before it opens. It always costs you something familiar, and it always demands trust before evidence. This is the point where many turn back, not because they were wrong, but because they wanted witnesses more than alignment. You are being asked a harder thing: to walk with the compass visible only to you, to move while others doubt, to trust that north is north even when the road disappears. Once you do this, something irreversible happens. You stop needing permission. You no longer need permission, which means you are now close to the veil. In the last section, you cross the threshold where external validation lost authority. That crossing changes how intuition functions. What once felt like guidance now begins to feel like communion. Because intuition was never just internal, it was internalized. A direct line does not announce itself as divine. It arrives as knowing because it bypasses debate. It does not negotiate with the intellect. It lands beneath it. And when the noise falls away, you realize the signal was never coming from you alone. It was moving through you. This is where language becomes dangerous. Because the moment intuition is framed as power, ego reaches for it. And the moment it is framed as technique, control tries to own it. But intuition does not respond to force or formula, it responds to alignment. Higher intelligence does not shout instructions, it transmits coherence. When you are aligned, the signal clarifies naturally. When you are fragmented, the signal distorts not as punishment, but as protection. You are not denied access. You are invited into integrity. This is why amplification is not about doing more. It is about removing contradiction. Every time you say yes while your body says no, you thicken the veil. Every time you act in truth despite discomfort, the veil thins. Not dramatically, quietly, until what once felt distant becomes immediate. You have already experienced this. Moments when insight arrived unforced. Moments when the right words surfaced without preparation. Moments when a decision resolved itself without analysis. Those were not accidents. They were moments of coherence. Spiritual practices do not create intuition. They clear space for it. Stillness, solitude, honest reflection, restraint from excess stimulation. These are not rituals to impress heaven. They are conditions that allow the signal to pass without distortion. The veil does not separate realms. It separates states of alignment. And the closer you move toward responsibility, the clearer the transmission becomes. Not because you are special, but because clarity requires weight. Those entrusted with direction must be able to carry it without spectacle. This is why intuition often deepens after loss, after stripping, after disappointment. When illusions fall away, alignment becomes easier. There is less to defend, less to perform, less to protect. And in that space, guidance sharpens, not louder, sharper. You stop asking, "What should I do?" You begin asking, "What must I honor?" That shift changes everything. Because intuition is not here to entertain you or elevate you above others. It is here to guide you through responsibility you cannot outsource, through paths where precedent fails, through decisions that shape more than just your own life. This is the weight of access. You are not overhearing divine intelligence. You are participating in it. And participation requires humility. You will not receive the full picture. You will receive enough for the next step, enough to remain aligned, enough to avoid the pitfall, enough to move without certainty, but with coherence. The veil does not lift all at once, it thins as you walk. And once you recognize that the signal responds to alignment rather than effort, you stop striving to hear more. You focus instead on living cleaner, truer, less divided, because the clearest channel is a unified self. You have reached the place where guidance becomes weight. In the last section, you recognized intuition as communion, not imagination, as a signal that clarifies when you live in coherence. Now, the final truth must be spoken because this is where the path stops being mystical and becomes accountable. Intuition is not given to make you feel special. It is given to make you responsible. Once you know you are answerable. The compass does not exist for moments of reflection alone. It exists for movement, for daily decisions, for how you speak, what you tolerate, what you refuse, what you build when no one is watching. This is where many retreat because embodiment costs more than belief ever did. Knowing without acting fragments you. Acting without knowing misleads you. But knowing and acting together forges authority. You are not asked to manifest outcomes through force. You are asked to manifest alignment through consistency. Intuition does not bend reality to your will. It aligns you with what is already waiting to be stewarded through you. That is the shift, from seeking signs to becoming one. Your life becomes the confirmation. Your decisions become the signal. Your presence begins to orient others without explanation. Not because you convince them, but because coherence is felt before it is understood. This is why intuitive living feels lonely at first. There are fewer mirrors, fewer scripts, fewer guarantees. But there is also less confusion, less self-betrayal, less internal noise. The compass grows quieter, not because it weakens, but because it no longer needs to shout. You begin to trust yourself again, not arrogantly, responsibly. You stop asking, "Is this right for me?" You start asking, "Am I being faithful to what I know?" That question simplifies everything. Chosen one. The uncharted does not need more seekers. It needs carriers. Those willing to walk with direction even when destination is hidden. Those who honor the signal even when reward is delayed. Those who understand that intuition is not escape from difficulty, but preparation for impact. You were never meant to drift. You were meant to navigate. And now that you remember what north feels like, you no longer have the luxury of pretending you are lost. You have walked far enough now to feel the quiet. Not the silence of absence, but the stillness that follows recognition. In the last moment, you were reminded that you are not here to seek direction endlessly, but to live as one aligned with it. Let this final movement settle you not into sleep, but into resolve. The compass does not need constant attention. It needs respect. You will not feel intuition every second. That is not failure. That is trust maturing. When alignment becomes habit, the signal rests. It intervenes only when course correction is required. The absence of urgency is not abandonment. It is confirmation. So stop scanning the horizon for signs you have already received. Your task now is simple, though not easy. Live clean enough that the signal stays clear. Choose slowly enough that you can feel coherence return. Say no quickly when your body tightens, even if your mind protests. You are not being tested for perfection. You are being trained for consistency. There will be days when you doubt again, days when noise returns, days when old conditioning whispers that you are imagining things, that you should wait, that you should be safer, smaller, quieter. Let those days pass without panic. North does not move because clouds pass overhead. Return to what you know. Return to the body. Return to stillness. You do not need to dramatize this calling. You do not need to announce it. Those who walk by intuition rarely need to explain themselves. Their lives speak in subtler ways through timing, restraint, depth, and presence. And understand this before you go. You are not responsible for convincing anyone. You are responsible for honoring what you've been shown. If you do, that guidance will meet you again and again, exactly when needed, never early, never late. The path will appear beneath your feet, not ahead of your eyes. And that is how uncharted territories are crossed. You were never meant to rush. You were meant to orient. Stand where you are. Feel north again. Then take the next step, not loudly, not fearfully, but faithfully.